What's up, guys? Welcome to Movie and Point's Flashback Reviews, where we take movies from our past, break them down, and tell you what we think about them. If you like what you see, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification button at the top to find out what's coming next, and also comment below on any of these videos. Tell me if I'm doing good, bad, tell me what you think of the video, and all that good stuff. So we continue our journey, our quest, our adventure to the Dark Phoenix, the last movie in the original Fox Pictures saga of the X-Men. And we get into a movie that I particularly like. I think is one of the best movies in the franchise. I would actually put it at number 2 behind the original second movie. And that, of course, is X-Men Days of Future Past, which is written by Sam Kinberg and brings back almost the entire X-Men franchise cast, including Patrick Stewart, Ian McKellen. You know, we got Hugh Jackman, Halle Berry, we got James McAvoy, we got Michael Fassbender, we got Jennifer Lawrence, we got Nicholas Hoult. We introduced to Evan Peters, who plays Quicksilver, and we have Peter Dinklage from Game of Thrones, who's playing Bolivar Trask. And so X-Men Days of Future Past is a movie I call a readjustment, a realignment of the franchise. It's a movie that took The Last Stand, X-Men Origins Wolverine, and completely obliterated them from the entire franchise. It's almost like they don't exist. It's kind of like they're non-canon, which is more power to them. I'm excited for that. It's too bad they created other movies later on that kind of caused another problem. But Days of Future Past, in essence, is a famous comic book story. It's one of my favorites. It's about basically the future, about mutants who are being hunted Terminator style by a thing called the Sentinels. And the Sentinels were created by Bolivar Trask and Trask Industries as a way to control the mutant population, to hunt down the mutants. So he basically was like almost like an antichrist in essence. So what Bolivar Trask does is he creates these Sentinels, and the Sentinels basically get out of hand like Skynet, and they not only kill the mutants, but they're killing humans in the process. So it's a whole mess, and it creates an anarchy and creates, you know, a future that we don't want. And that's what I love about it. It takes the mutant ideology, the mutant, you know, lore, and it kind of shreds it down into a basic story of survival. And that's what the X-Men franchise is in essence. It's a survival story about mutants who are trying to survive in a world that doesn't want them. And Trask and William Stryker and so on and so forth are just, they're not good people, and the government tries to take them down. Well, this movie expands upon that premise and brings in the fact that in the comic book, we had Kitty Pryde, who went back and tried to re-straighten everything, went back to, you know, the 70s or 60s or whatever it was to try and stop the Sentinel program from starting. Here, they did the smart move of bringing in Hugh Jackman as Wolverine, but because he can heal and he can, you know, he's the perfect candidate, because they were going to send Xavier back, but Xavier's old and he couldn't handle the time jump, because they really need someone that can handle it, because, you know, they've been doing a thing where they'll go and trying to find these locations in the future, and if it doesn't work out, the Sentinels find them. They have Kitty Pryde, who can transport them back to tell them that it wasn't the right scenario, so it resets everything. Well, because you have the original X-Men coming in, this is their last chance, and what they're going to do is go back to the 70s. They're going to go back and try and stop Mystique from killing Trask, and they're going to do everything in their power to reset the universe back into his original whole. And like I said, the only person who can do that is Wolverine. So he's transported back to the 70s. He does this thing where he finds Xavier, played by James McAvoy, and Nicholas Hoult, who plays Hank McCoy. And we find out that Xavier in the 70s is not the man that we remember from the 60s. He no longer has a school for the gifted. How that's happened in 8 years is crazy, and it's kind of a little bit of a plot hole. But he's basically given up. He's using a drug that Hank McCoy introduced in X-Men First Class, which basically kind of rebacks the mutant gene and allows Xavier, who is, you know, wheelchair ridden, being paralyzed, to basically walk. But in the process, he loses his ability to, you know, be a telepath. And so Wolverine basically has to smack him around a little bit. It's like, we need to get Magneto. We need to stop Mystique. If she kills Trask, they're going to take her, and they're going to control the fact that the ability of her powers to use in the Sentinels, which you see throughout the movie, which is really, really fascinating, because the Sentinels kind of adapt to the scenario. So let's say Iceman, or I think it's Pyro or something like that. I can't remember who's the flame character. Let's say they are attacking the Sentinels. Well, the Sentinels can actually adapt to the situation and turn into fire and kill Bobby Drake, or turn into ice and kill the flame guy, or kill Bishop, or kill Storm, however they need to do it. And it's a really scary scenario if you think about it. But so they're in that scenario. They rescue Magneto with the help of Evan Peters' Quicksilver, which we also had in Age of Ultron, a year later. But this is a much more interesting Quicksilver. It's a much more fascinating Quicksilver. Evan Peters is just doing wonders with this character, and thank God for whoever came up with the idea of, there's a scenario where they break Magneto out of his prison, and they get into a kitchen, and basically officers shoot at Magneto and Xavier and Wolverine, and because Xavier doesn't have his powers, he can't control them from shooting him. So what happens? We see the slow motion version of the events around him, and we see what Quicksilver is good at, which is manipulating the surroundings and basically taking down all the security guards and moving bullets out of the way. And he does it to a really cool song, which I'm not going to play because copyright infringement and all that stuff. But I love that. That's one of the best scenes ever created for a superhero comic book movie, or just a comic book movie in general, or even a movie in general. It's just a cool moment that gives a lot of fun to a very dark subjected movie, which all these X-Men movies are very dark, but when you can add humor and you can add lightness to it, it's fun to see. And that's why I love Evan Peters, and they gave him a much more expanded role in X-Men Apocalypse, so he's probably the best part about that movie. But like I said, we go into that. They rescue Magneto. Xavier and Magneto are having their problems. Wolverine and Magneto are having their problems. Magneto's just having problems with everything. But they have to group together to stop Mystique. Mystique has gone rogue. There's been a backlash between Magneto and Mystique. Magneto and Mystique had a group of people with Azrael and Angel and Banshee. Or not really. I think Banshee was still with the X-Men group of the Gifted. And they've been experimented on. They've been killed off. It's a clever way to kill off the characters and not have them come back, even though it's kind of depressing. And you see, Mystique sees all these characters, and she decides, because she goes to Trask Industries, where she finds out all this stuff is happening. And it's just insane to see. She goes actually to a military camp where some of the more mutants. We see an early Toad, and we see other characters. We see Lucas Till back as, Havoc, and she helps rescue him. And she thinks she's doing the right thing, even though she really isn't. She's causing a global phenomenon, a global destruction, if you will, of the mutant society by doing one thing, by killing Trask. It's amazing how one thing can basically ripple and cause so much pull that it causes the effect. But once they get to that moment, they thwart basically Mystique, and then the whole scenario of the ending plays out. Charles Xavier, who meets his older self when he takes a look at him through Wolverine's mind, he finally accepts the fact that he can help people, he can improve upon the situation if he only accepts who he is. And that's the best part about Xavier's character, is him accepting who he is. That's why James McAvoy is so brilliant, because he has this metamorphosis, this idea, this motivation when Wolverine comes around and smacks him around a little bit. And when he sees his older self, it's such a cool moment to see it when he uses Cerebro. And like I said, Michael Fassbender is doing what Michael Fassbender does best when he is just on his A game. He is, excellent as what he's doing. Has a vendetta, but he slows that vendetta to help prove the cause, because he's there to help the mutants. He's not there to help anybody else. And it does kind of stink a little bit. This is the only kind of problem I have, is Magneto turns into Mystique in essence, where he uses Trask as Sentinels, and he uses, I think, RFK Stadium in Washington, D.C. to trap the White House to bring the president up. He's using the Sentinels to basically show the world how mutants are being targeted, but he's also going to kill the president and kill Trask, and it's such a weird moment for everything that has been building up to it. But it doesn't make it any less effective. It's interesting. It's still fun to see. When Wolverine tries to attack Magneto and he pulls all the rebarb in, Magneto or Wolverine throws him off, it kind of you're just holy crap. And then Charles Xavier gets caught under some structuring, and he has to basically, because what happens is Mystique has been disguised as a Secret Service agent or something like that, and she's about to kill the president and Trask. And Xavier is able to stop her and to stop Magneto by showing her that this isn't the right way to do things. She can be better. She can be more human. She can do things that are more powerful than they need to be. And it's such a cool moment when she finally, that moment when she finally decides to let the gun drop and to let the president and Trask live, affects everything, affects the ripple. When the Sentinels attack the future X-Men, attack the future mutants, and they're all about to die, and most of them have died already, when she drops that gun, everything disappears and the status quo comes back to normal. And when, when she walks away, when Magneto is captured or disappears, while flies off, Wolverine wakes up and he is back in the mansion. It's put back together. There's kids in the school, and we get to see what we haven't seen for a long time. This movie is like 6 years or 8 years after the original X-Men: The Last Stand, or X2, is we finally get to see Storm, Bobby Drake, Rogue, who is actually in the director's cut more, but she's here. This is when we finally get to see her. We also have Jean Grey, who has been completely erased from the X2 continuum, where she gets drowned and turns into Phoenix, which it kind of conflicts with X2, which I really like. Like I said, they're trying to rebuild it up into Dark Phoenix, which is kind of, I don't know where we're going with this, but we also see Scott Summers, Cyclops, and also something I didn't mention is Alex Summers is in X-Men First Class and X-Men Days of Future Past, and that's his brother, which is really cool because it kind of plays out in X-Men Apocalypse. But then we see Charles Xavier back to his normal self. He's no longer on the run. He's no longer captured. We don't see Magneto because he's doing his thing. But they have that moment when Wolverine realizes that nobody knows what's going on, and Charles Xavier realizes that, he's finally has caught up to the present. And then, of course, at the very end, he's taken by what we think is William Stryker, who's played by Josh Hellman, and we find out it's Mystique, and that's when the movie ends. But like I said, I'm going to keep this short. I love this movie. I think it's fun. I think it's well written. I think it's well paced. It has a lot of really cool moments. The stuff in the embassy is really exciting, and in Paris, the stuff in the White House is really awesome. Just the fact that Jennifer Lawrence is actually doing something interesting and kind of cool here. Hugh Jackman is doing Hugh Jackman, which is always awesome as Wolverine. But we really get to see the underlying depths of what ticks with Xavier and Magneto, Eric Lencher's character. We really find that these characters are super flawed in their logic and thinking because they have their issues that not necessarily play out well. And, it takes Xavier to realize what he's doing is not the right course of action. It takes him kind of taking down Eric Lencher to kind of bring back the status quo. And you can tell that Mystique is a person that really is just conflicted with her emotions and everything that she's seen in the past 8 years, because this movie takes place 8 years after First Class. It's a really fascinating thing to watch, and I really appreciate what they've done with the movie. And I don't give credit a lot of times to Simon Kinberg, but he really had something on his hands that he did well with. And of course, the story by is with Jane Goodman and Matthew Vaughn, which I kind of wish he'd come back as director, but he was dealing with Kingsman. So, but yeah, I mean, other than that, it's a really cool movie. It has a lot of good moments. It has the Sentinels finally, which we've all been waiting for. Like I said, it's probably the last good X-Men franchise or X-Men movie that we'll see in the X-Men franchise. I know a lot of people like the X-Men First Class more than the X-Men Days of Future Past. I just feel with the source material, this one just kind of, it hits me more emotionally than X-Men First Class ever did. But that's hearsay. So, but anyways, that'll do it. That'll be my take on X-Men Days of Future Past. I hope you enjoyed. If you like what you see, like as always, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification button at the top. Comment below on what your favorite part about this movie is. Like I said, I love the Quicksilver stuff, and I also like the moment with Xavier's talking back and forth. But otherwise, I'll see you guys on the next video. Peace out. What's up, guys? Thank you so much for checking out Movie Emporium. I really appreciate it. If you want to, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. Hit the notification button and the bell at the top. Find out what's coming next for Movie Emporium. Also, check out these 2 videos. They're amazing. I think they're awesome. I think you'll enjoy them too. But otherwise, thank you so much for watching, guys. We'll see you next time.